Hello, everyone. We welcome you to SexEd Unfiltered, a podcast series launched in partnership with Putali, Nepal and Stand We Speak in collaboration with Yunus and Youth. In our candid, interactive, and game based podcast, we will be discussing and reflecting upon the topics of love, relationship, sex, and identity that are often soaked in shame and stigma all around the world.
Hi everyone, I'm Aishwarya Rani Singh, currently working as Managing Director for Putali, Nepal, a social enterprise working in Nepal.
And I'm Priyal Agrawal, the founder of Stanvi Speak, a sex tech organization based in India. And we welcome you to the third episode of SexEd Unfiltered. How do you see me? We all are very familiar with the most popular saying, don't judge a book by its outer cover. The saying might have started to sound cliche perhaps due to its overuse, but let's not all forget the depth the saying holds. To what extent have we actually imbibed the teaching this saying provides? Are we way too conscious about how others see us? And is our physical appearance the only thing that matters? Have we let others' opinion influence our thinking about ourselves, be it either positively or negatively?
Well, we indeed have lots of questions we are trying to find answers to, and we can't wait to invite our guests for today's episode to answer the questions surrounding body positivity. Today, we are thrilled to be joined by Yashashwini. And before we begin, we would like our guest to introduce herself. And since today's episode is on body positivity, along with your introduction, Yashashwini, we would also appreciate if you could tell us if positivity was an object, what would it be for you?
Thanks so much, Aishwarya. Thanks, Priyal. So nice to be with you guys today, and I'm really looking forward to all of these questions that we're going to be speaking about in such important conversation that we honestly don't have enough of. My name is Yashaswini Rajeshwar. I run Oxo Hub. We are a development sector consultancy based out of India. I have a very close personal relationship with some of the questions that we're going to be speaking of today. It's stuff that I've studied academically, stuff I talk about a lot. So I'm very, very excited for the next hour or so. If positivity was an object, what would it be? I actually surprisingly thought of the answer to this in about 5 seconds. I'm not the kind of person who usually does that. I think about things too much, arguably. But I have like a stuffed toy, which is, I think, right now about 25 years old, that has come with me from house to house and city to city and country to country, of a raccoon. And for some reason, that's the image that came to my head, because a raccoon is not traditionally the most beautiful animal. It has what we will most describe as patches and dark circles and all of that. But it's been a great source of comfort for me over the last many years. And so that would be my answer.
Thank you so much. I'm already looking forward to this episode of today's. It's great to have you here, and there's so many topics that we want to discuss with you, Yashashwini, and we can't to get it started. So, shall we? Are you excited?
I'm very excited and a little nervous. I think between the two of you, I suspect you'll have some tricky questions up your sleeve.
You don't have to be nervous. Be assured of that. Let's get started. I can't wait to listen to all your answers.
Perfect. So we would be playing 3 to 4 different games today, and we will explain the rules of each one of them as we move along. If you have any questions, please let us know. So, are you ready?
Yes, let's do this.
So, the first game is called Have You Ever? In this game, I will ask a question, and you have to simply respond with a yes or a no. But it would also be interesting to hear your personal experiences related to it. So, don't hesitate to share them with our listeners. The first question is, have you ever abused yourself physically or emotionally for not having a certain body type?
Unfortunately, many times over, yes. I am a very tall person, for at least for Indian standards, probably otherwise as well. I'm a little over 5'7". And growing up, that was awkward. I have been 5'7" since I was 14, 15 years old.
Wow.
And so, yeah, it's much better now because particularly the boys around me have grown, so I'm no longer the absolute tallest in every room that I walk into. But when you're in high school, it's hard enough without being literally a head and shoulders above everyone else. So that was awkward and led to some self-esteem issues and body positivity issues for sure. Yeah.
So did you become conscious of your own thoughts, or did people surrounding you made you conscious about it?
I think looking back, it's really difficult to kind of identify which one led to the other. I know, Priya, you're from India and Aishwarya, Nepal, it's not too far away. These are very, very, very deeply patriarchal cultures. And I remember as early as when I was 11, 12, when I was hitting my growth spurts and people realized that I was going to be tall. I come from a very tall family. Believe it or not, I have a younger brother. Between my parents, my brother, and I'm actually the shortest. So, given my family, it's not surprising that I'm 5'7". My brother is 6'5". It's crazy. It's ridiculous. He can't buy shoes anywhere in this country. But I think I was 12 or 13 the first time someone told me, if you don't stop growing quickly, you'll never get married. And it's such a strange thing to look back and think about. But I think at that age, you don't have the vocabulary about body positivity. You don't have the thought process around it. It's just a very confusing thing to be told that of all of the reasons why you should stop growing, if any could ever exist, it needs to be because there is some logic that says that A, you need to get married, B, you need to get married to a man, C, you need to get married to a man who is X amount of inches old, like taller than you. So it was it was strange.
It's also strange that we have stopped questioning these notions and we just accept it the way it is.
It's true. For the longest time, I was convinced that I would only ever get married to someone who was 6 foot or taller than that. I was just like, no, how can I do anything differently? I'm 5'7". That's not allowed. And I mean, my current partner is not 6 foot. So evidently things changed with time.
That's really good to hear.
Yes, Ashwini, just a question because I'm so interested to know this. So over the time, like, did you date men who were like taller than you, or you're okay with them being shorter than you?
I did consciously make my dating decisions on height, to be fair. I have not dated anyone shorter than me so far. I've dated people who were my height-ish. I have, however, dated people who were built smaller than me, which is another patriarchal notion that the man needs to be bigger by whatever measure. When you stand next to each other, you need to look a certain way. And that's another thing that was pointed out to me multiple times over. But many stories along the years.
Okay, so moving on, the next question is, have you ever starved or overfed yourself to look a certain way?
I don't think I've gone as far as starving. No, I have been unnecessarily conscious to the extent that I think I still have a very fraught relationship with food. I'm not sure how much I like truly enjoy it, because there's always a voice at the back of my head being like, are you sure? Shouldn't you be more careful? Are you sure? But I haven't starved. I have dieted. I once was, I think it's also ties in very strongly with authority voices. So what people that you trust or believe in or look up to, or even people in positions of power, dietitians, physiotherapists, doctors, what they say. So I was, for 3-4 months of my life, put on a really restrictive, rigorous diet where I was basically, without exaggeration, eating 1 cucumber and an egg for lunch every single day for 4 months.
Oh my God. I can never imagine doing that. Yeah.
And I mean, looking back, I should have known that A, that was unsustainable, and B, it's basically, cucumber is like flavored water. What am I getting out of it?
Exactly.
But it happened. It happened for 4 full months before I gave up.
Okay, moving on. Have you ever been bullied for your looks?
Yes. Gosh, these are really depressing questions. But high school was miserable. I think it goes both ways. This internalization. I think boys at that age are also dealing with a lot of societal pressure to be taller, have facial hair, have their voice break, be masculine and strong and aggressive. And back when I was in grade 11, 12, the boys around me were not quite hitting all of those marks, and they needed to take out a lot of um, that anger, and I guess that just confusion somewhere. And yeah, that was a couple of years. Having said that, I do think it's only fair that I also give a shout out to the people that I spent 5 years of my life with in college. We were all hostelites. We lived on campus, and I think that was the first time in my life that I truly came to recognize body positivity in a lived sense, not in a theoretical vocabulary. This is also their kind of sense, but it could apply to me in my life. Um, I think it's also the other thing that I'd quickly like to mention is that it's important that all of us recognize bullying when it happens within households as well, especially when we come from cultures that tell us not to wash our dirty linen in public, and whatever happens in the house is private, and people are always looking out for you and all of that. Sometimes our earliest instances of internalizing a lot of this baggage comes from people closest to home.
So, what do you think can be done in those situations?
I think a little bit of it is already being done, to the extent that I think our generation is the first generation, at least in India, that I know of, that is having such open conversations about these things. And those of my friends who have decided to become parents are being a lot more intentional about parenting than I think the generation before us was. And that's a start. I think the first step is to work through our own baggage so that it doesn't get transferred into intergenerational trauma. And another thing that I'm very passionate about is the power of language, and the kind of vocabulary we use and what it conveys. Whether we mean it or not is one thing, but words have meaning, and that's something that I think all of us should be aware of.
That is really insightful. So thank you for that. Have you ever avoided going to a public place or social gathering because you were less confident about how you looked?
Yes and no. I have been conscious. I have contemplated avoiding places. I come from a very lucky educational background where a large part of my schooling was in a very liberal, very vulnerable, very open, inviting school. So I was lucky enough to be exposed to a lot of these conversations very early on. And so I think I built that muscle to question myself and be like, why do you not want to go into that room? Is it because of, you're scared of the people, you don't like how you look, you're uncomfortable in the clothes? Like, what is it? And I think I have been okay with being uncomfortable in some of these moments. And over the years, it's become slightly less uncomfortable.
Yeah, and like you mentioned, I think the internal dialogue, the kind of conversations we have with ourselves is really important
Yeah.
to, gain the confidence that we need in our lives.
Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Okay, so the next question that I have is, have you ever gone for any aesthetic surgery or treatment?
No. In fact, I have consciously avoided getting my eyebrows done in the last many, many years, despite the fact that every beauty parlor auntie in India will tell you, don't you want to do just this? And just out of stubbornness, I've refused. So,
The rebellious in you.
yeah, just because you asked, I will not do it.
Yeah. So I think this goes without saying that if you had a chance, you would still not opt for it.
Yes.
Great. The last question that I have you ever looked at yourself in the mirror and felt you were not good enough?
Multiple times over. Multiple times over. I think as far as just physical appearance goes, I know I've spoken a fair bit in the last few minutes about, earlier on in adolescence. Over the last 2-3 years, I've battled various health issues which have caused a significant amount of weight gain. It's a struggle that I fight every day, even today. I cannot honestly tell you that I wake up and look in the mirror and like what I see. But thankfully, I have people around me, folks like you guys who are having conversations like this, which act as very important reminders that it's okay. It's battle scars. It will come and it will go.
Thank you so much, Yashashwini. I mean, I know the questions have been really tough for you to answer, and you've spoken about it so openly. There were so many points that I could really relate to you about, and it just like made me think, again, the same thing. No matter where we are, there's so many things that we as a women can relate to. Yeah. So I'm just excited to start the next round, which is called the Mythbuster. So in this round, I will give you a sentence that we most commonly hear, and you have to share your opinion with regards to it, whether you believe it's true or not. Is that okay?
Sounds good.
Okay. So my first statement would be, having a perfect body is the only way to attract men.
Oh, that's a good one. I'm not fully sure what a perfect body is to begin with. I think I was told very early on in my life that I need a specific kind of body to attract men. And it took me a few years to realize the faults in that argument. I think my life has very graciously taught me how untrue that is. I have anything but a perfect body, but I think it's seen me through a lot. I think that's one of those things that we tell young girls so early on that it becomes the only truth we know. And it takes so much effort for us to question that and break through that. Our bodies get us through 20 hours in a day, 18 hours in a day. Today, they're getting us through wave after wave of this supposedly never-ending pandemic. If that isn't a sign of perfection, I'm not sure what is.
I mean, I agree to you so much, especially the point when we enforce a certain idea onto children at a very young age, and they consider to start beginning it as a reality. And also the point that we have become less grateful towards what we have in a hope to get something that is shown and portrayed as perfection through media and other channels. I mean, thank you so much for that answer. My second statement would be, commenting on somebody's weight when you meet them is normal.
I mean, do I agree with it is one thing, but yeah, especially I think from the cultures that we come from, it's absolutely normal. It is normalized. It is even, it's that particular brand of supposed humor that they, that I feel like everybody will know that tone that I'm talking about, that one auntie, uncle ka tone where they're just like, oh, we've seen you after a long time, and you know that the next sentence is either about weight lost or weight gained or hair lost or hair gained, right? Like
even I can so relate to it, like so much.
Like you can just see it. You can see the train approaching, but you can't move out of the way. But I know that I've read multiple conversations about how people are pushing back and explicitly expressing how much they do not appreciate that conversation. If I were being completely honest, I don't do that. I grin and bear it and try to change the subject, largely because that kind of confrontation, especially with people who are most likely related to you or know you for a very long time, is a lot. And I very rarely have the energy that requires. So, yeah, is it normal? 100%. Should it be normal? Oh, God, no.
Yeah, I so agree to you. I mean, I have commented on people's look when I met them, but especially the ones who actually do it, like, how do I look? Or they've gone to gym, they've worked out, and they want to hear that comments, But then I also agree to you. I don't notice people's weight when I meet them, and maybe I'm so busy that I don't remember how they looked earlier to be able to compare. Like,
I mean, there's a lot of stuff happening in the world. Nobody's keeping track of how much everyone else weighs.
I agree, but it's surprising to know that people actually do.
It's true.
You meet them after years and years, but they would still remember how you looked earlier. So yeah, thank you so much for the answers, Yashashwini. And for the next round, I'll pass it on to Priyal now.
Okay, so this game is called Agree or Disagree, and here we will give you a few sentences, and you have to state whether you agree with it or not and why.
Okay.
So, shall we begin?
Go for it.
The first one is, I feel hesitant to share my body weight with other people.
300% agree. Yeah, no, I mean, I was recently telling a very close friend of mine that I have not been more glad of Zoom calls in the last 2 years just because people don't have an actual conception of what I look like. And it's a really easy way to hide behind difficult conversations with yourself. Forget sharing with other people how much I weigh. I barely work up the guts to step on a scale to find out for myself how much I weigh. So yeah, I mean, if there's anything on, like whatever the maximum number on your scale is, very, very much agree.
I can so relate to that because even I
Yeah.
avoided checking my weight for so many years.
Yeah,
Same day. I
it's
think
miserable.
I'm comfortable telling my age. Ask me, I will tell you right instantly. But when it comes
Correct.
to my weight, I'm like,
Can
no,
we
bye.
not? Like, yeah, just let's not.
Yeah, I agree.
The next is I feel people might have liked me more had I looked differently.
I am very, very grateful for everyone who's in my life who has taught me to disagree with this. I think if you had asked me a decade ago, I might have agreed with you. But I've met wonderful people along the way, and I'm very proud and very grateful for my inner circle that I've built in the last 10 years. And because of them, I disagree.
Would you like to give them a shout out here?
They know exactly who they are, and if I start naming names, I'll start crying, so we will let it go.
That was a trick question. Moving on. I have judged people on the basis of the clothes they were wearing.
Yeah, I think, honest truth, I think we all have. I think it's one of those things that is almost reflexive, and the only thing that I've been able to do in the process is catch that reflex and make sure that my behaviors, my opinions, my actions are not influenced by that knee-jerk judgment. I think, especially if you're in physical events and physical spaces, it's that much easier to kind of correlate with whether someone fits into the environment, whether they whatever. But I try to be as vigilant as I can to make sure that doesn't seep into any kind of judgment or preconceived notion of this is the kind of person they would be.
Okay. I think the fact that you pointed out that we all do it and subconsciously, like we all have it, but just to be able to judge that thought and to change that is really important.
Yeah, for sure.
So the next one is I have modified my body in my pictures before posting them on social media.
I'm not a big social media person, so it's I don't often post, and when I do post, it's not too often of me. And so far, I can very proudly say I have not used a filter in my life.
Wow, that's very rare.
Yeah, it could just be laziness in all honesty, but well, it works.
Okay. So the next one is I wear clothes based more on how I think they make my body appear rather than for comfort.
Yes and no. I think somewhere in between. I think it's something that I've been thinking recently a lot of, because my personal sense of style, I if I were being honest, I think it is somewhere influenced by many years of conditioning of, for your body type, this is the kind of clothes that will suit. And so I haven't truly hugely experimented with my sense of fashion or my clothing or things like that. I've always played it safe. So I'm very much like the ethnic girl. I'm the salwar kurta, dupatta, sari girl. Which has become like my image. Everybody knows that even if you're going to go and get a couple of drinks after work, Yashaswini has no problems being in a sari at the bar. That's kind of my thing. Whether I do that out of a choice or internalized, or because I'm tall, I am much like many women in the subcontinent, heavy waisted. And so people are like, oh, this suits you. You can carry it off. I don't know which fed into what, but I've never been rebellious about my clothing, so I don't know.
I like this. I like the part sari at the bar. That was amazing. Like kudos to you.
Thank you.
So the last statement that I have for this game is I can think of many people with whom I would literally trade bodies if possible.
Again, 10 years ago, I would have agreed, or even 5 years ago, I might have agreed. Today, I would hesitate. I don't think I would agree. I might think about agreeing, but I wouldn't. I'm very proud of how far I've come, and I think it's only in the last 2 3 years that I've recognized how much of that is because my body cooperated for as long as it did. I was not this, especially through my early 20s and all. I wasn't this girl who was conscious and nurturing and exercising well and eating well. None of that. I was barely sleeping. I was eating all the junk in the world. I was really not looking after myself. And I still managed to gather some amazing memories and meet some amazing people and do some amazing work. And I doubt I could have done that if my body started acting up. So, no, I'm good.
Yeah, so you know how people say that, don't work out because you hate your body, but work out because you love your body.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go quite that far, in all honesty, but I'm getting there.
Yeah. But thank you so much, Yashashwini. I mean, we are towards the last round of the question and answer. I mean, the game round. But I loved your answer so much, and I don't want you to go, and I just want to continue this game. But then, we all have to fit in the
I'll
time
talk to
window.
you anytime, Aishwarya.
That would be great. And with that, I have come to the last game for today, which is called Complete the Sentence. And here I will give you a few initial words of the sentence, and you just have to complete it. So, are you ready?
Sure.
Okay. For me, perfect body type is
Healthy.
the attributes of a sexy person for me would be
Mind.
I find it attractive when
Someone respects me.
I feel confident when
I respect myself.
I feel insecure when
I feel like I haven't given it everything I have.
amazing. So we are towards the end of this podcast and we will end it with this one question. If you had one advice for your younger self, what would it be?
To love myself a little bit more, I think. I think I spent my teenage being all too worried about how I was perceived and what people were saying and thinking and watching and what language they were using. Another thing about me that I'm actually surprised I didn't bring up before this in this conversation is everyone must have noticed, since it's a podcast, that I have a relatively bass voice. And so it's not uncommon for credit card salesmen to call and say, "Hello, sir," even to this day. And it used to really get me flustered when I was 15, 16, 17. But it's something that I've really come to love about myself. I am very proud of how well it carries and how much. I mean, my entire career today is based on my ability to speak and ask questions and work with it. And so, if only whatever 15, 18-year-old Yashaswini could hang in there to just wait and watch how far this body is going to take her and be kinder and more loving, that would have saved her a lot of heartache, I think.
Um, Thank you so much for sharing that. I'm pretty much sure, it had been a tough younger days, but I just want to tell you, and not because I want to make you feel good or anything, but I genuinely respect you as a person. And after hearing today's answers even more, and we could not have had a better person for this podcast to speak about the topics that we so wanted to come across to our audiences. So thank you so much, Yashaswini.
I
Thank
totally
you.
agree with you, Aishwarya. I totally agree with you on that.
Thank you both so much. These questions were pretty amazing. I imagine a fair bit of work went into them. They were thoughtful and sensitive and vulnerable. And I am very, very, very grateful that I was able to chat with you guys.
Thank you.
And with
Thank you so much, Yash.
Yeah, and with this, we have come to an end of our podcast. Thank you again, Yashashwini, for giving us your valuable time and also for participating so actively in the podcast. We loved your answers and the answers that you gave us about body positivity, by sharing your experiences with regards to your society and culture was definitely insightful. Thank you so much again.
Thank you both for having me.
And I would also like to add that, thank you for being so open and honest and sharing your personal experiences because I know it takes a lot of guts to even speak about it, and the way you were so comfortable even to discuss that and share that with our listeners. It's like amazing.
No worries. I think safe spaces are important, and you guys did a great job of creating one. And all of us can afford to be a little more vulnerable. I think it makes the world a better place.
You've reached the end of today's episode of SexEd Unfiltered. You can subscribe, rate, and review our podcast on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Google Podcast. For more updates, follow Putali Nepal and Stanley Speak on Instagram and YouTube. Until next time, thank you for listening.